Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Not every silent man is simple. Some are just 10 layers of complexity deep and don't owe you a map. You ever meet someone who says almost nothing, yet somehow you can't stop thinking about them? No emotional outbursts, no desperate need to belong. Just this unreadable calm, like their mind is 10 chess moves ahead and yours is still setting up the board. That's a Sigma male for you. And here's a wild psychological fact. The average person makes 35,000 decisions a day, most of them automatic. Sigma males, they override that system. They manually audit their mind, which is exactly why trying to understand a Sigma is like trying to crack an encrypted file with a butter knife. They don't speak their mind, they protect it. They don't avoid people, they dissect them. And they don't fit in, because they're not shaped for shallow spaces. In this video, we're diving deep into 12 brutally honest reasons why the psyche of a Sigma male is nearly impossible to understand. And if you think you've heard it all before, buckle up, because we're not doing clichés, we're doing code-level truth. Also, if you're the kind of person who's offended by people who don't overshare, consider this your polite warning. Sigma minds don't come with small talk, only shock value. Let's unravel what most people will never decode. Let's begin. Number 1. He sees emotions as data, not directions. Most people let their emotions drive them like a car with no brakes. If they feel angry, they act angry. If they feel sad, they collapse. If they feel loved, they lose themselves in it. That's the norm. React first, think later. But Sigma males are wired differently. They don't see emotions as something to obey. They treat emotions like raw data, signals to be analyzed, not instincts to surrender to. This is exactly why people find them so unreadable and, honestly, a little intimidating. When a Sigma male feels anger, he doesn't lash out. He dissects it. Where did it come from? What triggered it? Who benefits from this reaction? What's the hidden lesson? That's how his mind works. There's always a layer beneath the layer, and he's going to get to it. Not because he's cold, but because he refuses to be a puppet pulled by invisible strings. The same goes for happiness, fear, attraction, even heartbreak. Every emotion goes under the microscope. People often mistake this emotional processing for detachment, but it's not that he doesn't feel. It's that he won't let feelings blind him. If a situation calls for calm, but he feels rage, he'll still choose calm. If someone's manipulating him through guilt or affection, he spots it instantly because he's watching his own responses like a surveillance camera. That level of inner control confuses most people, especially those who've never questioned their own impulses. They don't know what it's like to pause between feeling and reacting. Sigma males live in that pause. This emotional self-discipline makes them unpredictable in the best and worst ways. You can't provoke them easily. You can't guilt-trip them. And you sure as hell can't seduce them with surface-level charm. They'll process the attraction, but they won't lose themselves in it. They'll notice your charisma and still test your intent. That's what makes them so hard to figure out. While you're watching their face, they're watching their inner world. And they're deciding, moment by moment, what deserves a reaction and what just earned their silence. People say, follow your heart. Sigma males do something else. They interrogate it. And that right there is what makes their psyche a fortress. Number 2. He's quiet because he's already finished the conversation in his head. He's not quiet because he has nothing to say. He's quiet because he's already said it to himself 5 times over in 5 different ways. By the time you're introducing a topic, he's already analyzed it from every angle. He's run the simulations in his mind. Best case, worst case, emotional impact, logical flaw, psychological motive, and decided whether it's even worth discussing. Most of the time, it isn't. This is why conversations with him can feel one-sided or strangely short. You bring up a concern or idea, and he just nods, maybe gives a single sentence, then goes silent. But that silence isn't dismissive, it's decisive. He's not processing in real time like most people. He processed before you even walked in. The conversation for him was an internal chess match that ended before you moved your first pawn. And when he does speak, it's not to brainstorm, it's to clarify, to correct, to end the mental loop. There's a reason why his responses seem surgically precise. He's already heard your argument, predicted your defense, anticipated your counter, and identified where it all collapses. So while you're building momentum, he's already standing at the finish line, waiting for you to catch up or to realize the conversation's already over. People mistake this for arrogance. It's not. It's efficiency. Sigma males are thinkers first, speakers second. They don't talk to think. They think so they don't have to talk. That's why they often seem one step ahead, emotionally reserved or hard to engage with. It's not a lack of interest. It's a surplus of inner dialogue you're just arriving late to. And this mental pacing frustrates people who rely on external processing. They want back and forth, validation, exploration. But he's already been there, done that, dismantled it, rebuilt it, and probably moved on to a different topic in his head. Trying to argue with him can feel like arguing with someone who read the last chapter of the book before you opened the first. He doesn't cut you off. He just doesn't need the conversation the same way you do. Because for him, most of it already happened, in silence, in solitude, and with zero need for approval. Number 3, he doesn't just observe people, he profiles them. When most people talk, they're trying to connect, impress, or fill the silence. A Sigma male, on the other hand, is scanning, not in an obvious or creepy way, but in a deep, hyper-attentive, forensic kind of way. He's not just hearing what you say, he's catching the tiny pauses, the phrasing, the nervous micro-expressions, the contradictions between your words and your body language. You think you're just talking. He's building a psychological profile. Every conversation with him is a low-key analysis. While others are busy reacting, he's quietly tracking your behavioral patterns. He notices how often you name-drop, how quickly you change your opinions depending on who's listening, how you handle disagreement, or what you leave unsaid when the topic gets personal. These things aren't random to him, they're clues, and it's not just the obvious stuff. He picks up on your defense mechanisms, your self-deprecating jokes that actually reveal your insecurities, your fake confidence, your obsession with being seen as nice or tough or spiritual. It's all getting categorized. He doesn't need to ask 100 questions. He gets his answers by watching how you navigate discomfort, attention, and silence. This is what makes Sigma males unnerving to people who thrive on masks. Because he's not distracted by charm. He's not swayed by appearances. He's looking straight at the wiring behind the performance. And if you're hiding something, chances are he's already sensed it before you even realize you're doing it. But here's the twist. He won't always let you know he's doing it. That's the real power. You'll think you're in a normal conversation, but you're actually in an assessment. He's not interrogating you, but he's collecting data. Quietly, thoroughly, and without mercy. By the end of one dinner, he might know more about your patterns than your best friend. And he won't tell you. Because the goal isn't to expose you. It's to understand whether you're worth opening up to, trusting, or avoiding completely. Most people try to impress or perform. Sigma males, they listen like psychologists and remember like spies. And that's why talking to one often feels strangely vulnerable. Like somehow he saw more of you than you meant to reveal. Number 4, he keeps secrets you'll never think to ask about. Most people assume secrets are hidden behind silence, guarded facial expressions, or a quick change of topic. They think if they just ask the right question, apply a little charm, or catch someone off guard, the truth will spill out. But that logic doesn't work with Sigma males. Why? Because the things they hide aren't just behind closed doors. They're in entire rooms you don't even know exist. The average person looks for drama, vulnerability, gossip, or past pain. They want stories that fit into familiar emotional categories. But a Sigma male doesn't operate on those frequencies. His real secrets aren't in the typical places. He doesn't just hide his pain. He hides his philosophies, his spiritual shifts, the turning points that rewired how he sees the world. Things that radically shaped him he won't speak of, not because he's afraid, but because you wouldn't think to ask. He could be carrying wisdom that took him 10 years to earn through silence, solitude, and internal war, and you'll never hear about it. Because most people are too busy looking for a confession, not a blueprint. They're wired to search for the obvious, and he's mastered the art of keeping the profound outside the radar entirely. And here's what's even more intriguing. He doesn't hide these truths in defensiveness or emotional walls. He hides them in plain, unassuming interactions. You might feel like you know him after a deep conversation, but what you got was only the layer designed for that moment. The deeper currents, completely untouched. He doesn't do this to manipulate. He does it because he values privacy on a level most people don't understand. To him, privacy isn't about avoiding exposure, it's about protecting the sacred. And what's sacred to him isn't flashy or dramatic. It's subtle, it's personal, it's earned. You could spend years around a Sigma male and still be unaware of the most transformative events, thoughts, and realizations that define him. Not because he's lying, but because those parts of him don't beg to be seen. They're not hidden under lock and key. They're hidden under assumption. And unless you're asking questions that don't sound like questions at all, you'll never even know what you missed. Number 5. He sees the lie behind social harmony. To most people, social harmony looks like success. Smiles, shared jokes, group selfies, agreement for the sake of peace. It's praised as emotional intelligence or good manners. But a Sigma male doesn't buy it. Not for a second. He doesn't see the laughter or the bonding first. He sees the edits, the masks, the quiet compromises people make just to be accepted. What looks like connection to others looks like quiet desperation to him. He can spot the performance behind the politeness, the co-worker who agrees with everything the boss says but grits his teeth in private, the friend who says, "I'm fine," because being real might make things awkward, the social media influencer who preaches authenticity but filters their entire identity. These things don't go over his head. They bother him. Because to him, any relationship built on suppression isn't real. It's theater. That's why he doesn't blend in easily, even when he's capable of it. It's not because he's antisocial or doesn't understand people. It's because he sees too much. When everyone's pretending not to feel the tension, he notices it instantly. When the group agrees on something they clearly don't all believe, he watches how they quietly trade truth for belonging. And to him, that's not unity. It's a soft form of self-abandonment. A Sigma male would rather be alone than play that game. He won't laugh at jokes that aren't funny just to keep the mood light. He won't pretend to be interested to avoid looking rude. He won't nod along if something violates his values, just to avoid rocking the boat. That kind of fake peace is too expensive. It costs him his authenticity, and that's a price he simply refuses to pay. This is why people often label him as distant, intense, or difficult to connect with, because when he does engage, it's raw, unfiltered, real, and that kind of honesty makes people uncomfortable, especially those addicted to the comfort of social illusions. He doesn't hate people, he just refuses to perform in order to be liked. He believes true connection doesn't require pretending. If it does, it's not connection. It's quiet betrayal dressed up as harmony. And he'd rather be misunderstood than ever betray himself like that. Number 6. He withholds for power, not protection. Most people think when someone is quiet or private, they're protecting themselves, maybe from pain, judgment, or vulnerability. But that assumption doesn't hold up with Sigma males. Their silence isn't about fear. It's about strategy. Every part of themselves they choose not to reveal isn't hidden because it's too fragile. It's hidden because it's too valuable to give away for free. He withholds to control the room, not to shield his emotions. Every unanswered question, every sidestep topic, every vague response. It's calculated, not to confuse you, but to keep control. Because the more you know about someone, the easier they are to manipulate, manage, or predict. The Sigma male knows this, so he flips the equation. He gives you just enough to stay curious, but never enough to define him. That tension? It's power. While others overshare to feel closer, he understands that mystery creates gravity. People are drawn to what they don't fully understand, and the more you try to figure him out, the deeper the hook goes. You're not having a conversation, you're chasing a code. You think you're getting to know him, but really he's watching how much of yourself you reveal while he says almost nothing. This isn't manipulation in the typical sense. He's not trying to deceive you, he's just highly aware that the less you give away, the harder you are to control. So instead of broadcasting his emotions, his motives, his dreams, he lets you sit in the unknown. He uses absence like a weapon. He knows how powerful it is when people can't label you, can't predict you, can't pre-package you in a familiar box. That's where he operates best. And here's the part most people miss. He's not hiding just to protect his peace. He's hiding to curate his presence. Everything you don't know about him becomes space for your imagination to fill in. And usually that space is more powerful than any truth he could offer. Understanding a Sigma male isn't just difficult. It's designed to be. Because the deeper truth is this: if you ever fully understand him, it's because he let you, not because you figured him out. Number 7. He keeps secrets you'll never think to ask about. The average person thinks secrets are dramatic, a hidden affair, a traumatic childhood, a double life. That's how society defines mystery: loud, emotional, and easy to sensationalize. But the Sigma male plays on an entirely different frequency. His deepest truths aren't hidden behind walls. They're camouflaged in plain sight, not locked away, not buried, just completely outside the range of what most people know to look for. That's the trick. People ask the usual questions. What happened in your past? What are you afraid of? Who hurt you? But those questions don't even graze the surface of the real things he keeps sacred. Because what he protects isn't just wounds. It's worldviews, paradigm shifts, internal revolutions that reshaped him quietly but permanently. The moments he decided to detach from the herd. The realizations that rewired how he sees relationships, purpose, freedom. You won't think to ask about those things, because they don't sound like secrets to anyone else. To him, the most personal truths are the ones people skip over, his spiritual convictions, the things he's willing to suffer for, the sharp moral boundaries he never announces but never crosses, the vision he's quietly chasing that no one knows about because he doesn't need applause to validate it. These aren't just pieces of information. They're the engine underneath his entire identity. And you won't hear a word of it unless you're someone who sees past the script. And the reason most people miss it? Because they mistake openness for depth. They think vulnerability is about spilling emotions. Sigma males think it's about who deserves access to what matters most. If you only know what he lets you don't know him at all. And most people don't. His mystery isn't about silence, it's about misdirection. You'll think you've got him figured out because he shared something serious. But chances are that was just the bait. The real stuff, the things that define him, you'll never even know you missed them. Because he doesn't hide behind locked doors. He hides behind your assumptions. And that makes his secrets not just hard to find, but damn near invisible. Number 8. He's immune to praise and criticism. Most people live on a feedback loop. They tweak themselves based on praise and recoil from criticism. They soften their edges to be liked, raise their voices to be heard, and adjust their values to match the crowd. For them, social approval is the GPS. They don't know who they are without it. But a Sigma male, he doesn't even install that GPS. Praise and criticism hit him the same way, as background noise. He hears it, registers it, maybe even learns from it, but it doesn't touch his core. Compliment him, and he might nod. Insult him, and he'll give you the same nod. That blank expression isn't apathy, it's immunity. He's not chasing validation, and he's not running from disapproval. He's simply uninterested in being molded by people who don't live his life, carry his burdens, or share his vision. This makes him strangely untouchable. You can't shame him into submission. You can't flatter him into obedience. You can't weaponize opinions against him because he doesn't need your permission to be himself. He's not rebellious for the sake of it. He's just independently calibrated. His sense of self isn't negotiated by claps or criticism. It's built from solitude, reflection, and trial-by-fire decisions that no one clapped for in the first place. That's why people often call him arrogant or unbothered. Not because he thinks he's perfect, but because he won't contort himself to fit emotional incentives. He's unmoved by applause and unshaken by mockery. That unnerves people who expect reactions, who thrive on pulling strings and getting visible effects. Even when he fails, he doesn't spiral into shame. He studies it like data. Even when he wins, he doesn't crave celebration. He's already moved on to the next quiet challenge. The result is a strange kind of freedom most people never taste. The ability to think, act, and grow without needing anyone to clap or approve. You can't steer someone who doesn't need a crowd to feel direction. And that's exactly why Sigma males are so hard to influence. They already decided who they are before you showed up with your opinion. Number 9. He doesn't escape society. He studies it from the inside out. People love to say the Sigma male has checked out of society, like he's some hermit in the woods or a shadow in a basement. But that's not it. He hasn't escaped the world. He's embedded himself inside it, quietly studying its every move. He's not trying to disappear from society. He's decoding it. Not from a place of resentment, but from calculated curiosity. He shows up to work, attends social events, shops where everyone else shops. But his reasons are different. Where others are looking to connect, climb, or be seen, he's scanning behavior, listening between the lines, and collecting patterns. To most people, life is about fitting in. To the Sigma, it's about understanding why people want to fit in so badly. Every conversation is a chance to gather more data. Every group dynamic reveals more about how humans trade authenticity for approval. He walks through social spaces like a scientist in a controlled experiment. He watches how people exaggerate success when certain people are listening. He notices how someone's tone changes based on status. He picks up on how fear dresses itself up as humility and how envy hides behind fake praise. And unlike others, he doesn't react emotionally to these things. He dissects them, not to mock them, but to master the code that others follow blindly. This is why he's often seen as aloof or detached. He's not emotionally invested in the social games being played around him. He's observing them, curious about how deep the need to belong runs, how often truth is bent for comfort, and how many people follow trends they secretly hate. You're not in his inner circle just because you're near him. Proximity means nothing to him. Because while you're trying to impress or connect, he's writing silent mental notes, building a blueprint of how you operate. You're not in his crew, you're in his case study. And that's the thing about Sigma males. They don't rage against the system. They infiltrate it, decode it, and quietly decide what parts are worth engaging with. While others are busy surviving the matrix, he's busy mapping it, so he knows exactly how to bend it without ever needing to belong to it. Number 10. He's not trying to be misunderstood. He just won't shrink to be digestible. Sigma males don't wake up hoping to be mysterious. They're not performing confusion to seem deep or being vague just to get attention. That's surface-level behavior, and they've long since outgrown it. The truth is simpler and more confronting. They refuse to shrink just to make themselves easier for people to understand. If who they are makes you uncomfortable or confused, they're not offended. They're done. They're not interested in breaking themselves down into digestible sound bites for people who only listen with half an ear. They've spent too long building a worldview, mastering their instincts and refining their character to dilute any of it for approval. You either meet them on that level or you miss them entirely. And they're okay with that. They won't dumb down their thoughts to make a conversation flow smoother. They won't fake lightness when their mind is heavy. They won't pretend to be more relatable just to keep your attention. They'd rather be left alone than slowly suffocate under forced simplicity. If depth makes people uncomfortable, that's not a signal to tone things down, it's a sign to disengage. This is where the misunderstanding kicks in. People assume they're distant, aloof, arrogant, but they're not trying to push anyone away. They're just refusing to become someone they're not. They'd rather be misread than misrepresented. And that often leads to silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know most people aren't listening to understand. They're listening to translate you into a version they can handle. Sigma males won't be translated. They're fluent in nuance, contradiction, and complexity, and they're not going to cut off their own edges just so someone else doesn't get scratched. If someone can't meet them where they are, they don't argue. They disappear. Not out of pettiness, but principle. They're not chasing connection that requires compression. They don't need to be universally understood to feel valid. So when you don't get them, don't expect them to explain themselves with a smile. Expect them to exit without a word. Not because they're fragile, but because they've made peace with the fact that most people only love what they can label. And Sigma males were never meant to fit in anyone's label maker. Number 11. He's emotionally strategic, not emotionally available. Most people believe emotional connection is a currency you earn, that if you're kind enough, loyal enough, or close enough, someone owes you access to their inner world. But Sigma males don't play by that emotional economy. They don't see vulnerability as a reward, or emotional openness as proof of trust. If they reveal something, it's not because you begged or bonded, it's because it serves a purpose in the moment. That purpose could be to test your reaction, to clarify a dynamic, or to plant a psychological anchor. But whatever it is, it's strategic, not performative, not reactive, and definitely not sentimental. So when people say he's closed off or he never opens up, they're missing the point. He can open up. He just won't do it on someone else's emotional timeline. He's not stingy. He's surgical. His emotional world isn't a faucet that runs when the vibe feels right. It's more like a pressure valve, carefully controlled and only opened when it's absolutely necessary. He's watched how people misuse emotions as weapons, leverage, guilt trips. So now, instead of letting emotion flow freely, he channels it with intent. This throws people off, especially those who believe that emotional availability is the mark of a real connection. But Sigma males aren't trying to prove connection. They're trying to understand context. And if that context doesn't require emotional sharing, he won't manufacture it to make you feel reassured. That's not coldness. That's discipline. The truth is, most people expect emotions to be handed over like gifts in a relationship. But a Sigma male treats his inner world like classified intel, and he's the only one with clearance. If you get a glimpse, it's because he chose to hand you a piece that mattered in that exact moment, for that exact reason. So don't confuse silence for detachment. And don't assume emotional distance means disinterest. He feels deeply, but processes inwardly. And if you demand emotional access without understanding why it matters, he won't just shut down. He'll shut you out. Because he doesn't offer emotion for validation. He deploys it for precision. Number 12. He questions every script, even his own. Most people are on a journey to find themselves, as if identity is some hidden artifact waiting to be discovered and polished. But Sigma males don't treat the self as a trophy. They treat it as a draft. To them, identity isn't something you find. It's something you rebuild, question, and burn down whenever it gets too comfortable. He doesn't just challenge the world. He challenges himself. Beliefs he once clung to. If they stop making sense, he drops them without ceremony. Values he was raised with, he'll hold them under the microscope until they either evolve or get erased. Even memories aren't off limits. If he suspects that nostalgia is clouding the truth, he'll revisit his own past, not to romanticize it, but to audit it. That's why people find him unreadable. While most are walking through life with a fixed identity, the loyal friend, the rebel, the victim, the healer, the Sigma is quietly rewriting his own source code. What was true for him last year might be completely dismantled this year, not out of confusion but because growth demands deletion. This isn't self-doubt, it's self-discipline. He doesn't fear being wrong, he fears being unchallenged. He doesn't hold on to ideas just because they're his. In fact, if something makes him feel too righteous, too sure, too unshakable, that's usually a signal for him to tear it apart and see what's hiding underneath. And that's what makes him so hard to categorize. You think you've figured him out, but you're using an outdated version. The emotional blueprint you memorized is obsolete. The philosophy he shared 6 months ago, he's already restructured it. You're talking to a moving target, not a fixed persona. People who crave consistency find this unsettling, but the Sigma isn't interested in consistency. He's chasing integrity. And to him, that means having the guts to evolve, even if it means contradicting who he was. He doesn't just question society's scripts. He interrogates his own, line by line, without mercy, because he doesn't want to be right. He wants to be real, even if that means rewriting himself from scratch again and again. Understanding a Sigma male isn't just difficult. It's almost a contradiction in terms. You don't figure him out like a puzzle. You experience him in fragments, in silences, in subtle disruptions that reveal how far removed he is from the ordinary template of human behavior. He's not interested in playing by rules, seeking approval, or making himself accessible just to be liked. He doesn't simplify himself for mass understanding, and he sure as hell doesn't slow down to be more palatable. He's a paradox in motion, emotionally reserved yet deeply perceptive, socially present yet psychologically elsewhere, brutally logical yet internally intense. And while most people are frantically constructing identities to be seen and understood, he's quietly dismantling his own to grow and evolve. That's what makes him unreadable. He refuses to live inside the categories people need in order to feel secure. To engage with a Sigma male is to confront the fact that authenticity doesn't always look charming. It doesn't always hand itself over in digestible sound bites. Sometimes it's raw, sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it walks away from connection not out of fear, but because that connection demands a compromise of self. He's not trying to be better than anyone. He's trying to be aligned with himself. And that alignment often puts him in conflict with systems, scripts, and social expectations that thrive on conformity. He doesn't fit because he was never shaped by the mold. He was shaped by observation, by relentless self-interrogation, and by the refusal to accept anything simply because it's popular. This is what makes his psyche so elusive. It's not a locked room, it's a moving storm, a living system that rebuilds itself faster than anyone can decode it. And unless you're willing to let go of every assumption and meet him in the unknown, you'll always be a step behind, watching, guessing, and misunderstanding a man who has already outgrown the question. So the next time you meet a Sigma male and find yourself puzzled, remember, he's not lost in mystery. You're just reading an operating system your software wasn't designed to run. If you found this eye-opening, hit that like button. It helps the message reach those who need to hear it. Drop a comment below and let me know which point hit hardest or made you rethink how you see the Sigma mind. Share this with someone who's always been misunderstood or quietly powerful. They might finally feel seen. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more brutally honest, raw, and rare content that cuts through the noise. This isn't surface level. This is where the deep ones gather. Stay sharp, stay uncommon, stay you.